Welcome to Nonsense Season 3, Episode 47, our big story and our second show of the week. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Stittle.
This time we're looking at pastrami on toasted rye with a side of fraud. The $100 million deli up next.
Ooh, is that side of fraud like the new fraud or the old fraud? Because I learned a lot from you about pickles last episode.
Old fraud, same as the new fraud. What's the song?
Yeah, sadly. It hasn't changed, has it?
Do you have a preference for Italian deli or Jewish deli?
Oh, boy. Yes. Can the answer be both?
Sure.
Can my answer just be yes?
They're very different.
They are extremely different. I don't even know if they should share the word deli in there.
I'm not sure why they have the same word. Yeah.
Having grown up going to Italian delis, and people were like, "Oh, hey, we're going to a deli," and you go to a Jewish deli. I'm like, "This is not. What are you talking about? This is good, but it's not the same as that."
Yeah,
they're different. They both have a place. They just have a separate place.
Well, no, I'm going to say let's combine them. Let's make prosciutto pastrami combos.
No,
it'd be good.
The richest, the prosciutto with no, it doesn't. I don't think it works.
Matzo ball minestrone. Oh, come on.
Oh, that could matzo ball.
Don't you want to taste matzo ball minestrone?
Yes. I think so. That one you might, yes, I would try that one, but that I can't imagine.
Kugel lasagna. Come on, let's have some kugel lasagna.
No, it's not lasagna at that point. Lasagna is lasagna. You cannot remove or add any ingredients.
I'll get you on this one. You ready for this one?
I doubt it.
Brisket tortellini.
Oh, hell yeah, I'm eating
Come
that.
on.
Oh, yeah.
That would be delicious.
Yeah. Brisket tortellini? No, forget that would be delicious. Do you know what I'm making tomorrow? Brisket tortellini.
Exactly.
Tomorrow. I'm going to have no fingertips from hand rolling the tortellini for 12 hours.
Fried artichoke latkes.
Oh, that'd be pretty good. Okay.
That'd be good, right?
Okay.
I think this is a thing.
What do we call this?
I have no idea.
Lucky to be alive deli. The lucky to be alive. I think that's what we're going to go with. Okay, now I can't think because I'm hungry thinking about brisket tortellini and matzo ball minestrone.
Okay, the deli that blew up Wall Street. Let's go.
Could you do like a chicken parmesan on rye? Like how does that, what? All I can think about.
Partway down a residential street in the working class town of Paulsboro, New Jersey, stood a seemingly unremarkable Italian deli. But this wasn't just any sandwich shop. Despite its doors being locked and its annual revenue having plummeted to a meager $14,000, this single business was the sole asset of a publicly traded company valued at an astonishing $113 million.
Bubble? What bubble? I don't know of a bubble.
This baffling discrepancy, initially exposed by a hedge fund billionaire as a prime example of financial quasi-anarchy, don't know why he needed the word quasi, had sent reporters and regulators on a wild chase for answers. The deli's president was the town's beloved high school wrestling coach, who had inexplicably teamed up with a shadowy network of investors in Macau and a motley crew with a history of legal troubles. As the story unraveled, it revealed a tangled web of empty shell companies and fraud accusations. The deli raised a chilling question. Was this a complex money laundering front or a new kind of meme stock whose value simply defied all reason?
Oh, no. We already have one of those.
We do?
They sell cars or I think robots, maybe software. I think they have a diner now on Highland. It's like a conglomerate, right? It's a very diverse offering. No, wait, hold on. You know when I knew the deli wasn't just a deli? When the deli has a, quote, president. Yeah. You know what a deli doesn't have?
President of the deli.
A president. There's no president. There's a guy that cuts the cheese and there's a guy that makes the sandwiches. That's it.
We'll come back to that. All right. In an absurd twist on market chaos, even prestigious universities like Duke and Vanderbilt owned a piece of the $100 million deli. This valuation was said to be part of a mini SPAC strategy. The goal? Use this shell of a company to acquire larger businesses, reinventing itself far beyond its small town origins. It's a shocking example of how financial anarchy is allowing new risky ventures to flourish, even if they're built on nothing but a dream and a few pickles.
I mean, what more do you need in your prospectus than a dream?
You don't even need the dream. I just think you need the pickles.
Just the pickles. Just a few pickles. The prospectus is mainly a drawing, is really all it is. I'm a fan of food, obviously. I'm a fan of delis.
Yes, of course.
I've eaten at some of the best delis, I believe, on the planet, at least in the United States, where I think most of them live. And I'm a frequent customer at Bay Cities.
We're never going to talk about the financial fraud, are we? We're just going to talk about good times we've had eating at good delis.
Oh, there was a fraud? Oh, I should pay more attention. I was thinking about my order. My point is, of all the places I've been, some of the best sandwiches in the world, I literally import godmothers when I travel east, godmothers from Bay Cities.
Oh, it's so good.
To my friends, because that's all they ask for,
sure.
right? I'm like, you want me to make you a brisket? They're like, no, just bring godmothers. And I'm like, okay, it's the easiest thing ever. I go spend $100 at Bay Cities. I bring them a couple sandwiches. I have been accosted. Accosted's a strong word. During the pandemic, I was staying at a hotel in Austin. I just gotten off the plane. I had a bag full of godmothers.
Yeah.
The woman in the elevator, this actually happened. The woman in the elevator looks at me. She goes, oh my God, are those Bay City's godmothers? And I was like,
sure,
they sure are. She's like, oh, we moved here like 3 years ago. My husband misses that place so much. I take one out of the bag and hand it to her.
You're so nice.
And I said, here you go. She goes, oh no, I can't take it. I was like, honestly, I brought extras. Like everyone here is going to eat it. I'm meeting a bunch of friends. She took it to her husband. That guy was so happy. He literally bought my drinks at the pool for the weekend, for the whole weekend.
Sure.
This guy, and I was like, we're going to drink a lot. He's like, I don't care. You gave me a Bay Cities. That's the kind of sandwich we're talking about. And that place, I could not imagine having a valuation north of like maybe a couple $1 million.
50 cents. Oh, sure.
Maybe. And most that's the land value because they're on Lincoln and Santa Monica.
Sure.
But like really $100 million on a deli.
Your Hometown Deli is what this thing was called. And it was started by the guy who was the local wrestling coach and principal of the high school.
Yes. But here's the thing. I knew this wasn't a legit sandwich shop with intentions of being a legit sandwich shop because
it was almost never open.
Here's the thing about this. This is like a whole, like we're going to open up Pandora's box of this weird world of special purpose acquisition companies.
Sure.
Reverse mergers.
Yes.
There's like this big blurry world of stuff.
Don't be afraid of the financial terms you're about to hear. We will explain them all clearly.
Maybe this is a naive read. You'll tell me otherwise. All of this are just ways of circumventing practices we've put in place to try to help protect ultimately the retail investor.
For sure.
You're not going to really protect the institutional investor. They know what the hell they're doing. But the retail investors, like
that's not true.
I know. That's the funny part.
Duke and Vanderbilt invested in this deli.
Well, Duke and Vanderbilt invested in a fund that invested in this.
Okay, same problem.
The problem is the fund. Well, yeah, I mean, Duke and Vanderbilt just picked the wrong fund potentially, but they invest in plenty of other venture funds that may make crappy investments as well because they're all trying to hit 1 in 20 or 1 in 50 or 1 in 100, whatever the hell their ratio is now.
The deli was never going to be that.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I really want to see the report from that fund where they're like, well, we've got a 2% stake in this deli in New Jersey.
That's like, never
really?
open.
Like, do they cater? Like, can I try a sandwich? And even the people that have gone to the deli, like food reporters have gone to the deli. They didn't say it was terrible. They said like,
sandwich is okay.
It's good.
It's serviceable. Yeah.
Well, like, is it great or is it good? Like, it's good. It's that scene with Ogre in Revenge of the Nerds when he's eating the whipped cream pie. Sure. And he's like, is it good? He's like, yeah, it's good. He's like, is it great? He's like, it's not great. It's good. He's like, uh-oh. And there's a naked picture of the guy's girlfriend on the bottom. Like, that's why they were selling the pies. So you've got these like SPACs and reverse mergers that are...
Hang on. Let me just say about Hometown Deli. The only reason we know about this is because David Einhorn brought it to the world's attention. He's a hedge fund billionaire who lost a fortune shorting Tesla stocks.
Yeah.
He kept saying Tesla there's nothing to this. This is the emperor who has no clothes.
Yeah.
We should be shorting this. Now the problem is, and any seasoned investor will tell you, the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent.
Yes.
And so that's what happened to David Einhorn. But he was also pointing out to the world, there are crazy things happening like this $113 million deli. And his joke was the pastrami must be great.
Yeah. I mean, he basically put this in as like a real world joke, like an obvious, not even a joke, a real world example of what's going on in the marketplace. And then shattered I'm going to call it a scam, like what they were trying to do.
Broke the whole thing open. Yeah.
What was it was like a university, like grad student that was doing the testing on VW diesels. And I was like, man, I'm not getting data here that doesn't.
The numbers are wrong. Yeah, exactly.
Wrong. But their point was, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing something wrong because there's no way this data can be true.
Discovered fraud.
And then it's like, oh no, you just blew up a multi-billion-dollar conspiracy that's been going on by VW. It's kind of the same thing here, not as big. Yeah. But he blew this up by basically in a memo just being like, this is how crazy the world is.
Paul Marino was a guy who was the high school principal, and he's the wrestling guy. He wrestled when he was in high school with a guy named James T. Patton.
Yeah.
And Patton had a background in finance. He was a stockbroker before he was barred from being a stockbroker.
Oops.
And he worked with these people, Peter Coker and his son, Peter Coker Jr. He introduced Paul Marino to all these people, and they assisted Marino in setting up the deli's business. They in fact, the lease, I think, has Patton's name on it initially. The plan was that they basically were going to manipulate the company's stock and create a reverse merger situation. I think was the original goal.
Give you some foothold here in the U.S., some very small amount of tangible assets, then we're going to merge you into something else and make you a big, giant mountain of money. That's the plan.
So they had this corporation, which they called Hometown International, which, by the way, is one of the great oxymorons of our time. Hometown International. Wait, what?
I know. I love it. Small Main Street Expressway. Like, wait, what? Yeah.
So Hometown Deli LLC became a wholly owned subsidiary of Hometown International back in May of 2014. The parent company, Hometown International, was incorporated just a few days earlier on May 19th. of 2014.
Yeah.
The stock began trading in 2019 on the OTC Markets, a stock exchange for over-the-counter securities.
Yeah.
Christine Lindenmuth was Hometown's vice president and secretary. She's a math teacher and administrator at the same high school where Paul Marina is the principal. Lindenmuth's home address is listed as the mailing address of Hometown International.
As all big companies are. I mean, if you want to send a notice to Tesla, it goes to Elon's house. Same thing.
Sure.
I feel qualified to make this next statement as a man who's grown his entire life with the last name Little.
Yes.
Marina, fine. Lindenmuth,
Sure.
fine. Probably German, fine. I would do business with them just based on their names. When you get to the Cokers, maybe not. Maybe the Cokers you do a little more diligence on before you get into Pete Koch Jr., Pete Koch Sr.
We'll tell the story, but Junior went to prison for a while.
Oh, yeah. Junior made me some license plates.
Backtrack just a second here. Let's talk about the OTC.
Yeah.
OTC Markets Group operates 3 trading platforms for over-the-counter securities.
Yes.
The one that's most famous is called the venture market.
And let's be clear here. OTC is not small. They have approximately $24 trillion listed on OTC Markets.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah, it's huge.
It's across 11,000 different companies. Now, if you compare that to the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, you've got about $45 trillion or so there. Those are the big boys.
Sure.
But the OTC is not small. I actually thought it was smaller than that before doing the research for this.
There are basically 3 levels. You have a menu of what you want. There's the best market, which is their high quality companies, and they're financially stable, transportations, U.S. international companies.
Oh, these are real names that you know, like Adidas, Air Canada, Heineken.
They just want to be able to raise money in the U.S.
In the U.S. They want access to the U.S. capital markets, but don't want the sort of regulatory annoyance of an exchange.
And then you have the venture market, which is their middle tier.
It's like luggage makers or lithium miners, ammunition foundries, budget hotel chains.
It's a little less stringent.
Yeah, I mean, for the vast majority of those companies, they're not outright frauds, right? Like they're not what you would call a gold-plated investment opportunity. But if they need to raise capital for some budget hotel chain, you can jump in on that.
And finally, we have what their lowest tier is. It's called the pink open market.
Yes.
And it's basically all the frauds.
Anything goes. It's basically...
It's not. I mean, some of these are legitimate businesses.
Let's be clear here. We don't provide investment advice. None of this should be considered investment advice, but pretty much those are all fraud. Yeah, you can kind of tell. No, look, I don't think they're all fraud. I do think probably the majority of them are at least suspect or fraud. And that says a lot.
Well, they might be small delis who are legitimately trying to operate actual businesses. You know, they're just in very high risky areas, but there are occasional frauds that happen. The pink open market, you got to go back to the name.
Yeah.
If you remember, there was on Broad Street a time when there were curbstone brokers, guys who literally stood on the curb and they had pink sheets of companies that weren't traded on the NASDAQ or the NYSE or whatever. And they would make trades standing on the curb. But those sheets where all that information was written on, it was pink colored paper, which is where we get the term pink sheets. It's also what the American Stock Exchange is, the Amex, which is basically used to be the pink sheets.
For what it's worth, Jason Paltrowitz, who's the director of the OTC Markets Group International, he does say that they like to enforce standards and requirements and that they estimate 2 to 3% of the 11,000 stocks are, quote, the bad ones.
2 to 3%.
I will personally take the over.
That seems really high.
Oh, I mean, yeah, first of all,
you think it's higher.
You're not wrong. It's like when you go to a casino and they're like 99% payout. I'm like, what happens to the other 1%?
So you can raise money at any one of these level markets, depending upon what it is.
But hold on, let's
have.
contrast the differences. So if you're on an exchange, this would be like the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. You've got real criteria for being listed on those exchanges. Yeah. And then your listing, like all your trades are going to go through some centralized system. Yeah. The OTC is
not centralized.
It's decentralized. You're actually, think of it as like the recycler for finding other people that want to make trades.
Which is why they can't delist companies. So if a company behaves badly, what they do is they put a little Jolly Roger next to the symbol. They put a little skull and crossbones next to the symbol.
This is the biggest difference, is that they can't delist you, right? All they can do is sort of mark you as like, be careful. Like they literally call it CE, caveat emptor. The logo for it is just what Jeff said. It's a skull and crossbones, which can't be a good look. If you're a legitimate company and you have a skull and crossbones next to your name, you probably are going to be like, oh, that's not going to be good for business.
All right, so let's go back to the story. Hometown International lists on the OTC.
Because they are a deli apparently looking to expand, but that's not really what they're looking to do. They've got Coker Sr., who is over in, where is he? In Singapore, I think? Yeah. And they're trying to find a company to effectively back into Hometown International.
Let us explain for just a moment what a reverse merger is.
Yes, please.
In a reverse merger, we take a company that is publicly listed for whatever reason. It's a deli, let's just say.
Sure.
It's already listed on on the market. So it's gone through all whatever little tiny scrutiny it has to go through.
Vetting process.
So that it can get listed on the OTC.
Yep.
Even a foreign company, whatever. They don't want to go through all that scrutiny or whatever. The easiest way then to get the listing without having to do an IPO, an initial public offering, the easiest way to do it is just to merge with that tiny little deli.
Yep.
Even though you're $100 million company or $1 billion company, whatever you are, you merge with this publicly listed company, and now, le voila, you are now publicly traded yourself.
Yes.
Magic how that happens. And it's called a reverse merger because instead of the company that eats the other company becoming the dominant player, becoming the owner with the management and all of that, it is the reverse of that.
A company merges with B company, new company to be called A.
Yeah.
In this case, A company merges with B company, new company to be called B, or some facsimile thereof.
Correct.
What is also worth noting here is the way that the public company benefits from this is some usually very small set of shareholders end up owning a chunk of the new company that gets merged in. So they'll negotiate some rate that maybe 80% of the shares of the new company are owned by new company, whatever's getting merged in. And then 20% or again, some number around there is owned by whoever just happens to be sitting on this asset. And that was the presumption of where we were headed with Hometown International, is that the folks that were in it, the principal and school teacher, as well as the folks who were sort of trying to orchestrate the deal, were going to own the biggest chunk. They had some stock. They also had options to buy more stock that they would sit on this to own sort of a piece of it. So if you get some other company who wants access to U.S. funds, they come in and boom, all of a sudden now you went from penny stock to something bigger than penny stock.
Paul and Christine, the people who worked at the high school, they owned 95% of the shares when this started.
I believe 5% went to the Cokers.
Yeah.
So they had a little stake to begin with.
With a lot of warrants.
With a lot of warrants.
For additional shares coming in the future.
So then they got some investments from folks in Singapore, right? There was some money that came in, one through a fund that Jeff mentioned earlier. I think there was some other cash that got put in. A couple $1 million, like real money.
Miso Capital, which invested for large investors and endowments of universities, they put in money.
They started flowing, they being Hometown International, started flowing money back to the Cokers as management fees.
Yeah, consulting fees.
To the tune of like 15, 25 grand a month, something like that as consulting fees.
Small money, but for a deli, huge money.
Oh, yeah.
For a deli bringing in $14,000 a year, enormous money.
Like in 3 weeks, you spent your entire revenue from last year. That might be hard to reconcile on the books later. So now you can start to see like the pattern of the grift. It's kind of started to be like, oh, okay, I get you. Money's going back to the people that brought it in. What also is interesting to note on the OTC is the way they mark the price is based on the last, I'll call it, significant trade.
100 share unit.
That is any 100 share trade or greater. So if you want to set the price of this particular business,
of the stock,
all you've got to do is buy 100 shares.
Yeah.
You can have your buddy buy 100 shares at, $100, and you just set the price per share at $100. Doesn't matter if it was legitimate, doesn't matter if you funded it. None of that matters. It just matters what price was paid at that time.
So you can, with a very limited amount of trading,
almost none.
You can evaluate the entire business. Talk about, back up and say what a market cap is. If you take the value of each individual share and multiply it by the number of shares, that's what we call the market cap. That's the entire supposed value of the business. That's supposedly what the market is valuing the business at. In this particular case, what they were doing when they were doing 100 share trade, since it was so tightly traded, literally days would go by, there'd be no trade. Sometimes it'd be less than 1,000 shares traded.
This is this nuance where this fits is like, you can set the price based on the ask, but in reality, you need to know the ask bid spread. And if you don't know the spread, then really that number has no value whatsoever. If you know the ask and bid are pretty close, you can do that math and say, okay, this is what this business is worth. But in this particular case, the spread between the ask and bid was the price of the ask. The going bid was probably about $0. So with a spread that big, you've got a lot of room between those two numbers. And I think that's the real problem here.
But it was them and largely accounts they had opened for their relatives. And they were kept bidding the so-called price up. There was so little trading that for a very small amount of money,
look, the business is growing.
They could make this in. I mean, at one point, Paul Marino was worth $20 million on paper.
Yeah, on paper. Yeah. What's nuts to me is like, I get like maybe somebody who buys small micro shares, maybe you get this past them. But anybody who's buying real shares, how do you not see immediately what's happening here? And that's the part that is difficult for my brain. I guess at some point that exists until you complete the reverse merge. Once you complete the reverse merge, then it's easier to hoodwink folks and be like, well, look at all the assets in this business.
I don't know. I think they're selling them the idea that this is going to be a mini SPAC. Basically, a SPAC is...
This is a special purpose acquisition company. Typically, these are blank check companies that are clean sheet. Someone raises money into it, almost always based on the skill set of management. There's no real assets. Yeah. They don't own anything. They don't have a business line.
We're going to acquire something with this money that we're raising. We just don't know what it is yet.
And because of our expertise in retail, in design, we think that we're going to be able to create a significant multiple on the asset that we buy. And that's typically what you see as a SPAC. And almost always those SPACs are public companies, so they can raise money publicly, and then they usually go buy a private company to bring it into the SPAC. They call that process
de-SPACing.
De-SPACing.
It's when you just become an actual company.
And now you're an actual company, right? And these happen all the time. So you're talking about between 2004 and 2018, we had about $49 billion in SPACs across 330 SPACs. So that was a lot. Now, they were just getting going. 2018 was the largest year for SPACs since 2007 at this time. They had 46 SPACs around $10 billion, but it just kept going. In 2018, you had 34 SPACs raising $6.4 billion US dollars.
Yeah.
You had 2 SPACs in 2018 that were $690 million each in effective IPO proceeds.
Let me cut to the end of this chase and just explain. SPAC use has gone way down since...
We peaked in 2021.
Right.
Yeah.
SPAC use has gone way down since 2021. It is now on the incline again in 2025.
Seems to be bounced. Yeah.
So that's why SPACs are of interest to us in this moment.
Absolutely. Now, to be clear, my position on this is that there are some SPACs that make a lot of sense that I think are very valuable that you can make money on for sure.
I'm listening.
I think the vast majority of them are not that. Yes, there are some that I think make sense, and I think you will make money on. They are not fraud. Why they didn't just go through a regular IPO process?
Exactly.
I ask some questions on that. Yeah, like, okay, we wanted to go quicker. Whenever I see that, I'm like, well, what were you trying to hide?
What are you circumventing?
Yeah, where are you hiding the goose? But I believe the vast majority of these are questionable at best.
Sure.
Right? And I think, assuming this is a regular distribution, I'm pretty sure the lump is pretty far to the left and not in the middle, is my hunch. And I know past performance is not a good indicator of future performance, but if you just look in general at SPAC performance between July of 2020 and December of 21, this was, someone did some research on this, an independent study. Why that time period, I don't know, but you had about 60% fall in shareholder value across the entire set. Now, this was from 20 to 21. The market was pretty much up and to the right between 20 and 21. We had volatility, but not 60% down. The study compared those average post-merger SPACs to traditional IPOs, and those SPACs underperformed by 26%. So does not sound like a winning class if you think about SPACs as a class.
Right.
That is not the index fund you want to buy.
I think generally it's not a good idea to write a blank check for investment.
I would agree with that. Now, in this particular case, again, if you really know or trust the management and they're going to put it to good work, this is a way of you buying in for a lesser amount, because otherwise their other option is to go to the private markets to raise capital, and they're probably not going to want to raise a bunch of $20,000 and $50,000 and $100,000 checks.
They can't.
They just can't.
They have to have qualified investors at that point.
You have to be a qualified investor. And in this particular case, through the public markets, you don't have to be a qualified investor. You can buy a small share. Also interesting to note, I looked at between 2009 and 2025, so roughly a 16-year period. I looked at the categories of de-SPACs that had the greatest losses. None of these categories are going to surprise you.
Yeah, sure.
Number one on the list, greatest number of losses?
Delis.
Oh, that would be hysterical. Oh, look, it's right there. No.
It's a whole genre of SPAC.
Cannabis. Cannabis companies flooded into this SPAC space, and their average percent loss between 2009 and 2025 is 98%.
Oh, yeah.
Take this number with a little bit of a grain of salt, because they're calculating total return as well as perceived shareholder value, but still 98%, you are down quite a ways.
It's a big number.
If you do 50x, you're back at even. Like that's the world you're in. Also on this list, electric vehicles, big surprise, crypto, biotech, healthcare. Like those are the top 5 that were there. So this is definitely a caveat emptor space in general, the SPACs.
Yeah, sure.
It's also interesting to note in this sort of SPAC and reverse merger process is that you get to do a little bit of shopping. You get to do a little bit of state law shopping. And there's a highly cited Harvard Business School paper from 2013.
Wait, backtrack 1 second. Just say, the deli was incorporated in Nevada. There's a reason they were not incorporated in where you would normally incorporate.
Like Delaware.
Would be Delaware. Now go ahead.
Many businesses want to incorporate incorporate in Delaware. Why? There's very clear, I'd argue, pro-business law. There's also a tremendous amount of case law.
Very established what your legal
If you're
procedure.
operating a business in Delaware, everyone sort of knows what that looks like.
Yeah.
So you would just think everyone would just go into Delaware. Why would you go somewhere else? As Jeff was mentioning, you saw this bit of an explosion of these SPACs in Nevada. Why? Why would you see them in Nevada? Like, you know how Delaware works. Why would you go to Nevada? Well, Nevada offered a different kind of appeal for these folks, which was that the law in Nevada is designed so that courts are seldom able to pierce the corporate veil, right?
Yeah.
Or in other words, you could not hold individual investors responsible for the behavior of a corporation.
No liability for what you do.
This Harvard Business School paper from 2013, researchers found that there was a correlation between reverse mergers in Delaware and clean SEC filing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So what you extrapolate from this is that if you want to run a business legitimately on the up and up, you incorporate in Delaware.
Yeah.
You put your SPAC or you fund your reverse merger for someone that's based in Delaware because it's the devil that you know. If you want to do things that you don't want to be held liable for, whatever those things may be, you incorporate in Nevada.
Sure.
Because as you well know, what happens in Nevada stays in Nevada.
Apparently stays in Nevada. Yes, by law.
I thought it was just Vegas, but apparently it's all of Nevada.
Yeah.
I find that bit kind of fascinating, right? To think about the correlation of incorporation for these SPAC companies and tie it back to success, or at least clean quote unquote filings, is somewhat fascinating. If a shell is incorporated in Nevada, its reverse merged offspring is more likely than its Delaware counterpart to develop, quote, corporate governance and data manipulation problems.
Sure.
That's from the Harvard paper. Corporate governance and data manipulation problems. There is a single easier word to describe that. I'll leave that for the listeners at home. With Hometown, I mentioned they were paying Tryon Capital, which, by the way, Tryon Capital? Really? You're calling yourself Tryon? Okay. A monthly consulting fee for, experience in the fast food business. However, they had no experience in the fast food business.
No experience whatsoever.
Which, by the way, is probably the best part of the story. They got what they paid for, right? You were paying for experience in the fast food business. You got none of that. Tryon's client list at the time listed a medical real estate firm, a golf supply company, a resort, and a, quote, insurance program for trees.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm really fascinated. I'd like to know more about an insurance program for trees.
Here's my question. Can I throw in a question here? Because I have read this story and I don't fully understand this.
Yeah.
Why, if what they were interested in doing was a reverse merger, creating a corporation that was publicly traded without having to go through the scrutiny of going through an IPO, an initial public offering, why did they care what the valuation was of their shares? Why did they go to all this effort
beforehand
to trade among themselves to raise the price artificially of the stock? What difference would it make?
So that's a great question. If you went down one of these reverse merger paths, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right? It wouldn't make any sense. This might be an example of Occam's razor, which is usually where I gravitate towards because I find it explains most things in life. This might have been the least sophisticated attempt ever because there are at least a few shareholders that unloaded their stock the day after Einhorn's letter, which was the highest volume trading day in Hometown's history. So you could presume that they were memeing this up and just waiting for it to get out there. And then when it got out there, they dumped. That's possible. I'm not saying that's what happened here.
However, look at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The day after Einhorn's disclosure.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, somebody came in and printed more shares, more 100 share transactions, and brought the price back up to within, it lost maybe 3.5% by the end of the day. That was it.
Well, that's what's so amazing about it. If you can predict when the volume ends, you just come in at the end and set the price.
Yeah, reset the price. In conclusion, some prison time was done.
Timeline on this, the end of this story. April 2021. The OTC markets sort of delisted the Hometown for not complying with the rules, and they marked it as CE, which literally stands for caveat emptor, which means buyer beware. So that was their form of delisting.
They slapped the skull and crossbones on you.
Which, by the way, I really wish this would carry over to the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange.
Just great.
I would if you do more than a 5% drop or something, they just give me a skull and crossbones, something. I think it'd be really fun. So that's April of 21. They are effectively marked as bad. In March of 22, Hometown International announced that it would merge with Macamer, which was a bioplastic startup based in Los Angeles. The merged company to be called Macamer Holdings. Big surprise. A merges with B, new company to be called B.
Although that was also a tiny company that could have easily, if it wanted to get listed, could have just easily gotten listed itself.
Sure.
I don't really understand that merger. They had 5 employees.
And Hometown International at the time was valued at about $110 million, which pretty much anybody that covered this said there's no way that they would get that value out after merging with Macamer.
Sure.
That makes no sense. Prior to the merger, at least the last 2 trading days for Hometown, they each had a volume of 100 shares. So again, they were just setting price, just folks setting price.
Artificially setting price.
The deli itself closed on June of 22. So once they sort of had this deal done, the deli was closed. Macamere Holdings sold its inventory on July 1st. They sold the deli business on August 9th. I want to know to who, because I think it'd be a great follow-up story. As of August 22nd of 2022, the phone number was not in service. In about 3 months, the deli just went away. The deli was gone.
Yeah, sure.
So you think, okay, end of story. Fortunately, it is not, because we still have some, or at least had some arm of law here in the great United States of America. And in September of 22, federal authorities announced 12 criminal charges against Patton, Coker Sr., and Coker Jr. related to their work with Hometown International and another one of their shady corporations, E-Waste Corp. This included conspiracy to commit security fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy to manipulate security prices. Patton was also charged with wire fraud, money laundering, and also security manipulations. So they, Patton and the elder Coker were arrested. They appeared in a North Carolina court. They pled not guilty. The younger Coker basically fled, and he was arrested in Phuket in Thailand in January of 23. So I think he was already there when the charges were issued. He probably wouldn't have gotten out. But the point is, he did not come home to face these. James Patton pleaded guilty to securities fraud and conspiracy to commit securities fraud in December of 23. The Cokers pled guilty on December of 24 under an arrangement that binds both sides to argue for imprisonment for specific ranges of time, 0 to 2 years for the elder and 30 to 50 months for his son.
Wow.
The elder Coker was sentenced to 6 months in jail, 6 months of home confinement, $500,000 fine, and up to $640,000 in restitution. His son was sentenced to 40 months in prison, including credit for time served in a Thai prison and an Essex County, New Jersey jail. He would be in prison for 12 months or potentially less. He renounced his U.S. citizenship in 2019 and is now a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis. He faces deportation after he serves his sentence. I don't even know how that's going to unfold. What is that? Like, that's like chapter 2 of this story right there. And all of this is from this $100 million deli that was blown up from this mention in Einhorn's memo from years previous.
Okay, so the entire reason anyone has stayed listening to this show, we must now get to, which is the big reveal. Where can I get good deli now in Paulsboro?
That's a great question. One that I don't have the answer to, but we should go on location and find out.
Turns out I do.
You do?
Yes.
Really?
Heritage Deli Store, number 18.
Oh, number 18. Yeah.
On Billings Avenue in Paulsboro.
Yeah. No, number 17 was close.
No, garbage.
And Marge, the manager, number 16, she's just not friendly at all. But number 18 is where it's at.
They sell Dietz and Watson meats and cheeses, as well as subs and party trays.
The opportunity here is if Hometown International can do a $113 million reverse merger for their deli, think of what Bay Cities could do. They could be the Santa Monica unicorn. That could be a $5 billion business.
All right, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
I mean, can it be deli related?
If you'd like.
I hate doing these hungry. I do, and it's a good one. I mean, it's not a good one.
Oh, good.
It's a great one. It's 2 years old. I watched finally Jim Downey on Conan O'Brien's podcast. I actually listened to most of it. For those of you who don't know Jim, he is the funniest human on the planet.
On the face of the earth.
On the face of the earth. I said it, and now you can fight me if you want.
Yeah.
But he's the funniest person on the planet. He opens with how he feels, quote, entirely unapologetic about being Conan O'Brien's friend, and then launches into this absolutely hysterical bit about him and Jeffrey Epstein and Conan, and it's just the funniest thing.
It's hilarious.
And to hear Conan just losing his mind because it's so funny. It's hysterical. And for those of you that don't know who Jim Downey is,
SNL writer.
Early SNL writer. I think he was there for the most contiguous, like 27 of the first 35 seasons. He was like the writing partner of Norm Macdonald during Weekend Update. And just like he talks about how he would toil over word choice in these jokes, which is hysterical. He acted opposite of Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. He tells some stories from that. It's really fantastic. I promise you will laugh. If you don't laugh during this, then you're probably dead inside. But it's really, really funny.
Link in the show notes.
I will absolutely link in the show notes. You should listen to it. It's from Team Coco from like 2023. But it's great. How about you? What do you have?
I have 2013's Martin Scorsese film The Wolf of Wall Street, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Based on the true story of Jordan Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street is a wild ride through the decadent, fraudulent world of 1990s finance. The film pulls back the curtain on Stratton Oakmont, a brokerage firm that made a fortune by manipulating worthless penny stocks. With plenty of excess and debauchery, from lavish parties to drug-fueled office binges, beneath the high-octane lifestyle is a ruthless pump-and-dump scheme that preyed on unsuspecting investors. It's a masterclass in how charismatic grifters convinced people to buy their false reality, creating a financial house of cards destined to collapse. While The Wolf of Wall Street is a dramatization of events, the core story of Stratton Oakmont's rise and fall and the shocking fraud and excess that defined its culture is based on true events. The firm's legacy of deceit and manipulation is so prominent that its story also inspired the 2000 film Boiler Room. The Wolf of Wall Street. If you have a library card, hard, you can stream it for free now on Canopy, also on Paramount Plus.
Okay, so your firm was so terrible it inspired 2 separate movies, which was incredible to me.
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense. A truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. This is on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stu Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, my favorite Overcast, wherever you may get your podcasts from.
Nonsense uses the Arch Linux operating system with the KDE desktop for its editing systems. Infinite customization for maximum productivity with no ads and no bloatware. As always, open source and free.
We should really switch to Windows.
Over my dead body.
We'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday mornings for more nonsense. Please join us. When the Coker boys were being sentenced, because they pled out, but to ask for leniency, they're like, well, we don't understand. We just followed the Elon playbook. Just with Elon. Why us? What do you have against us?
Exactly.
Damn foreigners taking all of our fraud.
What did we do?
Yeah, because restaurants are hard and terrible.
Restaurants are hard. Even the ones where you don't go into it knowingly creating a fraud. Just the regular business of restaurants are hard.
The very small number of restaurateurs that go into it knowing they don't want to commit fraud. Even those folks, that small people that
Even
are doing
those
it
people it's hard
altruistically
for.
that actually think
You
they
know,
want
the ones who actually want to feed people.
Yeah, no.